Stop searching and start knowing. Because the restless energy inside you, the one that keeps whispering there must be more than grades, more than paychecks, more than likes and late night doubts, is not a weakness but a compass. And the moment you become still enough to listen, you begin to sense that what you have been hunting in the outer world has always been pulsing quietly within your own awareness, waiting for you to recognize it. And as that recognition softens your urgency, you start to see that the law of attraction is not some mystical force reserved for the lucky or the gifted, but a mirror responding faithfully to your dominant state of being, to the images you rehearse in your imagination, to the emotions you practice in secret, to the beliefs you repeat when no one else is listening. Because every thought infused with feeling becomes a magnetic signal, and every vision you dare to hold with conviction begins shaping the invisible architecture of your tomorrow. Which is why visualization is not daydreaming but design. And when you close your eyes and see yourself thriving, confident in your career, financially free, surrounded by genuine love, you are not escaping reality. You are rehearsing it, instructing your subconscious mind with cinematic clarity, telling it this is who I am becoming. And as you feel the gratitude of already having it, your body cannot distinguish between imagination and experience, so it begins aligning your actions, your posture, your decisions with that elevated version of you. And from that elevated place, affirmations stop being hollow phrases and start becoming declarations of identity, whispered like sacred promises. I am worthy of abundance. I attract meaningful relationships. Opportunities flow to me effortlessly. And as you repeat them with sincerity rather than desperation, you notice a subtle shift, a strengthening in your spine, a steadiness in your breath. Because you are no longer begging life to change, you are embodying the change itself. Yet, even deeper than wealth, deeper than success, deeper than romance, there is a discovery that transforms everything at its root. And that is the realization that you are not merely the voice in your head narrating fears about the future or regrets about the past. You are the awareness observing that voice, the silent presence in which every thought appears and disappears. And when you glimpse this truth, fear begins to loosen its grip because you understand that suffering is born from identification with passing mental stories rather than from the essence of who you truly are. And as this awareness expands, the power of now becomes vividly alive, not as a concept, but as an experience, because in this precise moment, before the next ambition, before the next comparison, there is a quiet completeness, a stillness untouched by success or failure. And from this stillness, positive thinking becomes natural rather than forced, arising not from denial of challenges, but from the clarity that you are greater than any temporary circumstance. From that clarity, manifestation transforms into a dance rather than a struggle. Wealth becomes an extension of value you express. Relationships become reflections of the love you cultivate within, and success becomes the byproduct of alignment rather than exhaustion. Because when you operate from awareness instead of anxiety, life responds with synchronistic elegance. And as you rest more often in this knowing, eliminating fear not by fighting it, but by witnessing it dissolve in the light of consciousness, you begin to feel something astonishingly simple and profoundly liberating. That the greatest secret was never about controlling the universe, but about discovering the infinite presence you already are, the silent, luminous awareness in which all dreams arise. And in that discovery, you stop chasing the horizon and start walking gently, confidently here and now, realizing that everything you seek is unfolding from the inside out, exactly where you stand. There is something extraordinary happening in your life right now, something so subtle and so constant that you may have overlooked it completely. And that is the quiet conversation between your inner world and everything you experience outside of you. Because hidden in plain sight is the realization that your thoughts are not private whispers lost in the dark, but living currents shaping the reality you walk through every single day. You may have believed that circumstances create your mood, that money creates freedom, that relationships create happiness. Yet if you look closely at your own story, at the moments when you felt unstoppable, magnetic, alive, you will notice that those experiences began as inner images, as daring visions you held in your imagination before they ever became tangible. And that is where the law of attraction reveals its elegant simplicity. Life mirrors the dominant frequency of your mind and heart. And as you begin to see this, visualization transforms from a trendy practice into a sacred rehearsal. Because when you picture yourself succeeding in your career, building wealth, attracting a loving partner who understands your soul, you are not escaping reality. You are instructing your subconscious with clarity and emotion. And emotion is the fuel that ignites manifestation, the invisible language the universe understands without hesitation. Which is why gratitude becomes so powerful, not as a polite habit, but as a state of being that declares, even before the evidence appears, that you trust the unfolding of your life. And when you wake up and feel thankful for opportunities that have not yet materialized, for abundance that has not yet entered your bank account, for love that has not yet held your hand, you send a message of certainty rather than lack. And certainty attracts confirmation. From that certainty, affirmations gain momentum, because when you whisper, "I am worthy of wealth," or "I attract supportive relationships," you are not trying to manipulate reality, but reprogramming the inner narrative that once told you you were not enough. And as the old story dissolves, new possibilities rush in like fresh air into a long-closed room. Yet beneath all these techniques lies something deeper, something even more liberating, and that is the understanding that you are not merely the thinker of thoughts, but the awareness behind them, the silent observer watching dreams of success and fears of failure pass across the screen of your mind. And in recognizing this awareness, you begin to loosen the grip of fear because you see that fear is simply a thought believed too intensely. And as this insight settles into your being, the power of now becomes tangible because you realize that anxiety lives in imagined futures and regret lives in remembered pasts. But your true power exists only in this breath, this heartbeat, this vivid present moment where creation is actually taking place. From this presence, positive thinking is no longer forced optimism. It is the natural outcome of seeing clearly, of understanding that every moment is a fresh canvas, and you are holding the brush. And as you continue holding that brush with growing confidence, you start to notice that the world responds differently, that opportunities appear in conversations, that ideas arrive unexpectedly, that people are drawn to your calm assurance. And it feels almost magical until you realize it is simply alignment, the outer world synchronizing with the inner shift you have cultivated. This alignment makes attracting wealth less about chasing money and more about embodying value. Because when you recognize your inherent worth, when you invest in your skills, your creativity, your courage, abundance flows as a reflection of the energy you contribute, and success becomes an extension of authenticity rather than exhaustion. And in the same way, relationships evolve from neediness into connection, because when you discover that you are already whole, already complete within your own awareness, you no longer seek someone to fill a void, but to share an overflow. And that shift transforms love from attachment into partnership, from fear of loss into celebration of presence. Yet even as prosperity and companionship begin to blossom, the deeper treasure remains the recognition of non-duality, the understanding that the line you once drew between me and life was imagined, that the consciousness looking through your eyes is the same consciousness animating the stars. And when this truth dawns gently within you, competition softens into cooperation, envy dissolves into inspiration, and comparison fades into appreciation. From this spacious awareness, suffering begins to unravel, not because challenges disappear, but because you no longer define yourself by them. And when fear arises, you observe it as a passing cloud rather than a permanent identity, allowing it to move through without constructing a storm around it. And as you practice returning to this observing presence again and again, you discover your true self, not the resume, not the social profile, not the collection of achievements or mistakes, but the steady, luminous awareness that has been constant since childhood, silently witnessing every triumph and heartbreak without being diminished by either. Living from this discovery, manifestation becomes effortless because you are no longer striving to become worthy of your dreams. You are expressing the worth that was always there, and each affirmation, each moment of gratitude, each intentional visualization arises from joy rather than desperation. So you move through your 20s not as someone scrambling to prove themselves, but as someone awakening to themselves, understanding that the greatest secret was never hidden behind complicated rituals or distant horizons, but resting quietly within your own consciousness, waiting for you to recognize that you are both the creator and the creation, the dreamer and the dream, and in this recognition you breathe more freely, love more openly, and walk forward with a serene confidence, knowing that everything you seek is unfolding from the awareness you already are. There comes a moment in every seeking heart when the chase becomes exhausting, when manifesting feels like effort and affirmations feel like work, and it is precisely in that fatigue that something astonishing begins to reveal itself, because the greatest secret is not another method to perfect, not another vision board to design, not another ritual to master, but the realization that what you are searching for is the very awareness within which the search is happening. And as that realization gently settles, you begin to see that the law of attraction has always been responding not merely to your words or images, but to your state of consciousness, to the identity you silently assume yourself to be. Because if you believe you are incomplete, you will manifest from lack. And if you recognize yourself as whole, your desires begin to flow from fullness rather than desperation. This is where visualization deepens into something almost sacred, because instead of picturing wealth to escape poverty or love to escape loneliness, you start envisioning from the feeling that you are already enough, already worthy, already powerful, and from that inner sufficiency, the images you create become vibrant extensions of joy rather than remedies for pain. And as you practice gratitude from this place, something subtle but transformative occurs, because gratitude is no longer a strategy to attract more. It becomes a natural overflow of recognizing the miracle of being conscious, alive, aware in this moment. And from that awareness, abundance begins to feel less like a future goal and more like a present reality unfolding in divine timing. Which is why affirmations shift in tone, becoming gentle reminders rather than urgent pleas, whispers that say, I am abundance, I am love, I am success. Not because you are trying to convince the universe, but because you are dissolving the illusion that you were ever separate from it. And this is where the veil of non-duality begins to lift, revealing that the observer and the observed are not two. That the consciousness looking out through your eyes is the same intelligence orchestrating opportunities, relationships, synchronicities, And when you feel this unity, even for a moment, fear loosens its grip because there is no longer a hostile world outside of you to battle against. From this awakening, the power of now becomes luminous, almost electric, because you recognize that the past is memory and the future is imagination. But this present awareness is real, immediate, alive, and it is from here that manifestation truly arises, not from anxious striving, but from serene alignment with what already is. And as you continue resting in this awareness, you notice that your relationship with success begins to transform, because instead of chasing achievements to validate your worth, you create, build, and strive from inspiration, and success becomes an expression of your inner clarity rather than a measure of your value. This clarity also reshapes your relationship with wealth, because money is no longer a symbol of survival or status, but a flow of energy responding to the value you embody. And when you operate from authenticity and confidence, opportunities seem to gravitate toward you effortlessly, not through manipulation, but through resonance. And in the realm of love, something even more beautiful unfolds, because when you discover your true self as awareness, whole, unbroken, complete, you stop seeking someone to rescue you from loneliness, and instead you attract a partner who mirrors your inner stability, your joy, your depth, creating a connection rooted in presence rather than fear of abandonment. Yet, even as life begins to reflect harmony, challenges may still arise, but now you meet them differently, because eliminating suffering no longer means eliminating problems. It means releasing identification with the anxious voice that narrates them. And when you witness fear without merging with it, you realize it cannot survive the light of awareness. From this witnessing, positive thinking becomes effortless, not because you deny difficulty, but because you see beyond it, understanding that every experience is unfolding within the vastness of consciousness that you are, and nothing that appears can diminish that infinite essence. And as this understanding matures, manifestation becomes a dance rather than a demand, a co-creation with life where your intentions are clear, but your trust is deeper, and you move through your days with a quiet certainty that what is meant for you cannot miss you. So the greatest secret revealed is not a hidden formula, but a revelation of identity. The discovery that you are not merely a young man or woman trying to conquer the world, but the awareness in which the world appears. And from this realization, you breathe differently, love differently, dream differently, because you know that everything you seek, wealth, success, relationship, peace, is not separate from you. And in this gentle knowing, you rest, no longer chasing happiness, but living as the presence from which happiness naturally flows. The revelation did not arrive as fireworks or thunder, but as a quiet shift in perception, a gentle yet undeniable recognition that what you had believed to be solid and unchangeable was in fact fluid, responsive, intimately connected to the invisible current of your own awareness. And as this realization deepens, the understanding of the law of attraction evolves from a tool you use into a truth you embody, because you begin to see that it is not merely your thoughts that attract, but your identity, your inner atmosphere, the story you silently tell about who you are and what is possible for you. From that recognition, visualization transforms into a living experience, no longer a strained attempt to force the universe into submission, but a luminous act of conscious creation where you see yourself thriving in wealth, moving confidently through opportunities, building meaningful relationships filled with respect and tenderness. And you feel these realities as if they are already unfolding, because in the realm of awareness, imagination infused with emotion is creation in its earliest form. This emotional alignment births a deeper gratitude, not just for possessions or achievements, but for the mysterious intelligence orchestrating your path. And as you feel thankful even for challenges that refine your character, even for delays that redirect your course, you step into a powerful frequency of trust, one that dissolves impatience and invites manifestation to unfold naturally rather than through anxious control. Affirmations now carry a different energy, becoming declarations spoken from certainty rather than hope. Words like, I am abundant, I am deeply loved, I am aligned with success, echoing not as wishes but as reminders of your true nature. And as you repeat them with presence, the subconscious mind gradually releases outdated beliefs of limitation, replacing them with expansive visions that feel thrilling and attainable. Yet beneath this thrilling expansion lies a more profound unveiling. The insight that you are not the fluctuating thoughts that celebrate or criticize, not the emotions that rise and fall like waves, but the steady awareness observing them all. And in this discovery of your true self, non-duality begins to reveal its breathtaking simplicity, because the sense of separation between you and life softens, and you realize that the same consciousness animating your body is animating every opportunity, every person, every circumstance you encounter. From this unity, fear begins to unravel, because fear thrives on the illusion of isolation, on the belief that you are alone against an unpredictable world. Yet when you know yourself as awareness itself, as the vast field in which all experiences arise, suffering loses its foundation, and challenges become temporary movements within a much greater stillness that cannot be harmed. The continuation of this revelation reshapes your understanding of the present moment, turning the power of now into something tangible and transformative, because you begin to notice that every manifestation, every spark of success, every encounter with love is born here, in this living instant where thought meets intention and intention meets action. And when you anchor yourself in this immediacy, you no longer postpone happiness until wealth arrives or until the perfect relationship appears. You allow joy to bloom now, independent of conditions. This grounded joy influences how you approach attracting wealth, shifting your focus from scarcity-driven striving to inspired contribution. And as you cultivate skills, express creativity, and take courageous steps aligned with your passions, abundance responds like an echo in a canyon, returning amplified energy to its source, because the universe mirrors your self-concept with astonishing precision. In relationships, this mirrored precision becomes even more profound, for when you no longer seek validation to fill a hidden emptiness, you radiate a magnetic calm that draws partners who resonate with your wholeness. And love evolves into a partnership of two aware beings choosing connection rather than clinging, creating intimacy that feels safe, expansive, and real. Positive thinking now flows effortlessly, not as denial of hardship, but as clarity rooted in awareness, because you see that no circumstance defines your essence. And when setbacks occur, you witness the temporary frustration without allowing it to construct a permanent identity, gently returning again and again to the stable presence within. Within this stable presence, manifestation becomes less about acquiring and more about expressing, less about chasing dreams and more about unveiling what was always inherent in your consciousness. And the more you rest in this awareness, the more seamlessly life arranges itself in alignment with your deepest intentions. The reveal continues until it becomes unmistakable that the greatest secret is not hidden in distant teachings or complex formulas, but shining quietly within your own being, inviting you to recognize that you are both the dreamer and the dream, the creator and the creation, And as this truth settles into your heart, a serene confidence replaces urgency, a gentle joy replaces striving, and you walk forward not as someone searching for fulfillment, but as awareness itself, expressing abundance, love, and success with effortless grace. It begins with a whisper that feels almost unsettling, the realization that much of what you call reality is shaped not by fixed laws outside of you, but by patterns of thought, inherited beliefs, and silent assumptions that have been looping in your mind since childhood. And in that recognition comes the startling insight that you may have been dreaming with your eyes open, reacting to shadows of old stories rather than consciously creating your experience. From this stirring awareness, the idea that you are dreaming does not mean your life is unreal, but that you have been identified with a narrow version of yourself, a character built from memories, fears, ambitions, and comparisons. And as long as you believe you are only this character, the law of attraction operates unconsciously, pulling into your life reflections of insecurity, scarcity, or longing because your dominant self-image quietly commands the script. This is why waking up is not about rejecting dreams of wealth, success, or love, but about recognizing the dreamer behind them, the awareness in which every desire appears. Because when you discover that you are not merely a body striving for validation, but the consciousness observing that striving, something extraordinary shifts, and manifestation becomes less about chasing and more about aligning with your deepest truth. Visualization then transforms into a lucid act within the dream, where you no longer imagine success to escape failure, but to express your natural creativity, seeing yourself building businesses, mastering skills, forming soulful relationships, not from desperation, but from inspiration. And this subtle change in emotional tone amplifies your magnetic presence in ways that feel almost mystical, yet profoundly practical. Gratitude follows like sunlight after dawn, illuminating the fact that even the challenges that once seemed unfair were shaping resilience, clarity, and empathy. And when you begin appreciating your present circumstances rather than postponing happiness until a future milestone, you dissolve the illusion that fulfillment is elsewhere, discovering that the power of now is the only fertile ground where dreams can take root. Affirmations become less about convincing the universe and more about dissolving the hypnotic trance of limitation, gently reminding you that you are worthy of abundance, capable of meaningful love, deserving of success. And as you repeat these truths with presence, you gradually detach from the fearful narratives that once defined your potential. In this awakening, non-duality emerges not as an abstract philosophy, but as a felt experience, the realization that the same life force animating your thoughts and emotions is animating the entire cosmos. And when separation fades, fear begins to weaken because there is no hostile world outside of you, only different expressions of the same consciousness exploring itself. Waking up continues as a deeper unraveling, where you start noticing how suffering was sustained by identification with passing thoughts, and the moment you observe a fearful story without merging with it, you glimpse your true self as the silent witness, untouched by anxiety, unchanged by external events. And in that witnessing presence, freedom quietly expands. The dream of scarcity loses its grip when you see that wealth is not solely currency in a bank account, but the expansive state of mind that recognizes opportunities, builds value, and trusts life's unfolding. And from this clarity, inspired action flows naturally, guiding you toward endeavors that align with your talents and passions rather than social pressure or comparison. Relationships also transform within this awakening, because instead of seeking someone to complete your unfinished story, you meet others from wholeness, appreciating connection without clinging, offering love without bargaining, and attracting partners who resonate with your authenticity rather than your hidden insecurities. Positive thinking ceases to be forced optimism and becomes clear seeing, an understanding that setbacks are temporary scenes in a much larger narrative. And when you remain anchored in awareness, you navigate challenges with composure, recognizing that no experience can diminish the essence of who you truly are. This essence, discovered through stillness and self-inquiry, reveals itself as pure awareness, luminous and unbounded, the space in which every thought, emotion, and manifestation appears, and from this vantage point, the law of attraction is understood as a mirror reflecting your dominant state of being, faithfully echoing your inner alignment back into form. As the dream dissolves into conscious living, you realize that waking up does not remove ambition or desire, it refines them, allowing you to pursue success, wealth, and love from joy rather than fear, from creativity rather than insecurity, and with each present moment breath, you feel the profound simplicity of existence, the gentle certainty that nothing is missing, that the search has always been a journey back to yourself. And in this quiet awakening, life unfolds not as a struggle to survive, but as a radiant expression of awareness discovering itself through you. There is a subtle tension that most young hearts carry without even realizing it, a constant stream of thoughts measuring, comparing, predicting, replaying conversations from yesterday, and rehearsing imaginary scenarios for tomorrow. And within that restless mental noise, you may have tried to practice the law of attraction, repeating affirmations while secretly doubting them, visualizing wealth while fearing scarcity, desiring love while expecting disappointment. And this inner contradiction reveals the very theme unfolding now, the discovery that true manifestation does not begin with controlling reality, but with freedom from the mind that distorts it. Freedom from the mind does not mean destroying your thoughts or silencing your intelligence. It means recognizing that the voice narrating your life is not the essence of who you are. And when you first glimpse this distinction, something almost magical happens, because you realize that the anxious commentary running through your head has been shaping your emotional state, and therefore your manifestations, quietly influencing what you attract into your relationships, your career, your financial journey. This realization can feel unsettling at first, especially if you are between 18 and 25, navigating identity, ambition, love, and uncertainty, because the mind often feels like your only guide. Yet the deeper truth is that awareness is the silent presence behind every thought, the space in which ideas appear and disappear. And once you rest in that awareness, even briefly, you begin to sense a calm authority that does not need to prove itself or compete for validation. From this stillness, visualization becomes clearer and more potent, because instead of imagining success from a place of insecurity, you see your future from a grounded confidence, feeling the excitement of building wealth, contributing value, creating meaningful work, not to fill a void, but to express your authentic creativity. And that subtle shift in emotional origin transforms the law of attraction into a natural reflection of your inner alignment. Gratitude deepens within this freedom, no longer a forced list of blessings, but a spontaneous appreciation for the present moment, the rhythm of your breath, the opportunity to grow through challenges. And when gratitude arises from awareness rather than obligation, it radiates a frequency that gently dissolves fear, replacing it with trust in the unfolding journey. Affirmations now resonate differently as well, because instead of battling negative thoughts, you simply observe them, allowing them to pass like clouds across a vast sky. And from that spacious perspective, you declare truths such as, I am abundant. I am worthy of profound love. I am aligned with success. Not as desperate attempts to overwrite doubt, but as reflections of the deeper self that has always been whole. In this unfolding freedom, non-duality ceases to be an abstract spiritual concept and becomes an intimate recognition that the awareness within you is not separate from the intelligence shaping the universe. And when the illusion of separation fades, the struggle to control outcomes softens, because you realize that life is not opposing you, but expressing through you. Fear begins to lose its grip here, not because circumstances suddenly become perfect, but because you are no longer identified with the fearful narrative in your mind. And as you observe anxiety without merging with it, suffering diminishes, revealing a serene presence that remains untouched by temporary storms. Freedom from the mind continues to unfold as a profound liberation, inviting you to experience the power of now not as a philosophical idea, but as a living reality. Because when you step out of compulsive thinking, you discover that this present moment is astonishingly complete, lacking nothing, and from this completeness, manifestation flows without strain. In this clarity, attracting wealth becomes less about chasing numbers and more about embodying value, cultivating skills, pursuing passions with focus and joy. And when your actions arise from presence rather than pressure, opportunities seem to align effortlessly, reflecting your inner stability back into tangible results. Success also transforms under this awareness, shifting from a desperate quest for external validation to a natural extension of your authenticity. And you find yourself making decisions based on intuition rather than comparison, trusting inner guidance more than societal timelines, which creates a confidence that others can feel even before you speak. Relationships deepen through this same liberation, because when you are free from the mind's constant analysis and fear of rejection, you show up as your genuine self, listening fully, loving openly, and attracting partners who resonate with your wholeness rather than your wounds, creating connections grounded in mutual growth rather than dependency. Positive thinking arises organically from this state, not as denial of hardship, but as clarity that no temporary event can define your identity. And even when disappointment appears, you meet it with awareness, feeling emotions fully without allowing them to dictate your self-worth or future expectations. Within this expanded consciousness, manifestation becomes a dance between intention and surrender, where you set clear visions, take inspired action, and release attachment to outcomes, trusting that what aligns with your true self will naturally materialize in perfect timing. And this trust eliminates much of the suffering that once accompanied desire. Gradually, the discovery of your true self deepens beyond personality and achievements, revealing awareness as your fundamental nature, luminous, unchanging, quietly observing every experience. And from this vantage point, you recognize that freedom from the mind is not the loss of ambition or passion, but the purification of it, allowing you to pursue dreams from joy rather than fear. In this gentle awakening, life feels less like a battlefield of competing thoughts and more like an unfolding masterpiece, where wealth, love, and success are expressions of inner harmony rather than proofs of worth. And as you rest in this awareness, breathing calmly, sensing the quiet aliveness within, you realize that the greatest secret was never about controlling the world outside, but about discovering the freedom that was always present inside, waiting patiently for you to notice it. There is a moment in every young life when you begin to notice that your thoughts alone do not shape your reality, that two people can repeat the same affirmation and visualize the same dream, Yet one moves forward with magnetic momentum while the other remains stuck in quiet frustration. And it is in this subtle observation that the true power of feelings begins to reveal itself, because beneath every thought lies an emotional current. And that current is what the universe responds to with unwavering precision. Feelings are not fragile, fleeting sensations that happen to you by accident. They are energetic signals broadcasting your inner state into the vast field of consciousness. And when you desire wealth while secretly feeling unworthy, or crave love while fearing abandonment, the emotional frequency outweighs the mental request, gently but firmly attracting experiences that mirror the dominant feeling rather than the spoken words. This is why understanding the power of feelings transforms the law of attraction from a mechanical technique into a living, breathing relationship with life itself. Because the universe does not respond to surface-level positivity. It responds to the depth of your emotional alignment, to the quiet conviction beneath your thoughts, to the feeling of already being abundant, already being loved, already being capable. And as this realization deepens, visualization becomes something more immersive than mere imagination. It becomes an emotional rehearsal of the life you long to experience, where you close your eyes and do not simply see yourself succeeding, but feel the thrill of achievement in your chest, the steady confidence in your posture, the gratitude flowing through your breath as if the dream has already unfolded. And in that emotional immersion, you impress a new identity upon your subconscious mind. Gratitude, in this context, becomes a powerful emotional amplifier, not just a polite acknowledgement of blessings, but a profound state of appreciation that shifts your entire nervous system into openness and receptivity. And when you wake up grateful before checking your phone, grateful before counting your money, grateful before seeking validation, you signal to life that abundance is already present. And life echoes that certainty back in forms you could not have predicted. Affirmations begin to feel different as well, because instead of repeating them with forced enthusiasm, you speak them slowly, allowing each word to land in your heart, noticing the resistance that may arise, and gently replacing tension with curiosity, understanding that the goal is not to silence doubt, but to feel your way into a deeper truth, one that says you are inherently worthy of success and intimacy without having to prove yourself. Yet beneath these practices lies an even more profound insight, the recognition that feelings themselves are experienced within awareness. And when you observe a wave of fear or excitement without immediately identifying with it, you begin to taste non-duality. The understanding that you are not the emotion but the space in which emotion moves. And this discovery brings a quiet freedom that softens suffering at its roots. Understanding the power of feelings continues as a journey inward, revealing that many of your emotional patterns were inherited from family stories, societal expectations, and past disappointments. And when you become conscious of these patterns rather than unconsciously replaying them, you reclaim the authority to choose how you feel in response to life's unfolding. Within this reclaimed authority, attracting wealth transforms from anxious striving into inspired creation, because instead of operating from fear of scarcity, you cultivate feelings of sufficiency and creativity, investing your energy into skills, ideas, and collaborations that genuinely excite you. And as your emotional state stabilizes in confidence and trust, opportunities begin to appear as natural extensions of your inner alignment. In relationships, this emotional awareness becomes even more transformative, because when you no longer project unresolved fear onto a partner or potential lover, you approach connection with openness rather than defensiveness, expressing vulnerability without shame, listening without preparing a counterargument, and attracting someone who resonates with your emotional maturity rather than your hidden insecurities. Positive thinking, often misunderstood as ignoring pain, now reveals itself as the conscious choice to cultivate empowering emotions even in challenging circumstances, acknowledging disappointment while intentionally nurturing hope, recognizing frustration while consciously returning to gratitude. And through this emotional discipline, you gradually eliminate the suffering that arises from unconscious reactivity. The power of now intensifies in this process because feelings only exist in the present moment. And when you anchor yourself in awareness of your current emotional state, you interrupt the automatic momentum of past-based fear and future-based anxiety, discovering that this very breath holds the capacity to reset your entire energetic direction. As this presence becomes more familiar, manifestation feels less like an external pursuit and more like an internal alignment, where your outer world reflects your inner emotional landscape with astonishing accuracy. And instead of manipulating circumstances, you refine your feelings, knowing that they are the true architects of your experience. Gradually, the discovery of your true self unfolds not as a dramatic revelation, but as a gentle remembering that beneath every emotion, beneath every desire, there exists a stable awareness untouched by gain or loss, praise or criticism, and from this realization, a serene confidence emerges, allowing you to dream boldly, love deeply, and pursue success passionately without being enslaved by fluctuating feelings. In this calm and luminous understanding, you sense that the greatest secret was never hidden in complicated rituals or external achievements, but in the simple yet profound mastery of your inner emotional world. And as you breathe into that awareness, feeling gratitude for this very moment, you realize that by choosing your feelings consciously, you are quietly shaping a life that reflects the beauty, abundance, and love that have always lived within you. There is a silent exhaustion that settles in when you have tried everything to escape negative feelings: distraction, denial, overworking, endless scrolling, even forced positivity. And yet the heaviness still returns in quiet moments, in the space before sleep, in the pause between conversations, and it is in this honest recognition that the true transformation begins. Because the end of negative feelings does not come from fighting them, but from understanding what they truly are. Negative emotions are not enemies invading your life. They are misunderstood messengers born from identification with thoughts that tell you you are not enough, not safe, not loved. And as long as you believe those thoughts define you, fear, jealousy, anxiety, and sadness will appear solid and permanent, shaping your vibration and quietly influencing what the law of attraction mirrors back into your world. This is why manifestation sometimes feels inconsistent, because when you visualize success but secretly feel unworthy, when you affirm love yet carry the ache of past rejection, your dominant emotional state overrides your conscious desire, and life faithfully reflects that hidden frequency, not to punish you, but to reveal what still asks for awareness. Awareness is the turning point, the gentle light that dissolves shadows without struggle, because when you pause and observe a negative feeling without labeling it as failure, without trying to suppress or dramatize it, you begin to sense that it is simply energy moving through consciousness, and you are the space in which it appears, untouched and whole. From this spacious recognition, non-duality ceases to be a mystical concept and becomes a lived experience. The understanding that there is no separate you battling against bad emotions, but rather one field of awareness in which thoughts, sensations, and feelings arise and dissolve. And as this realization deepens, suffering loses its grip because you no longer identify with every passing storm. Eliminating fear does not mean becoming fearless in the traditional sense. It means seeing that fear is a mental projection into an imagined future. And when you anchor yourself in the power of now, in the immediacy of this breath, this heartbeat, this moment, the imagined catastrophe cannot survive, and what remains is clarity and calm responsiveness. From this calm presence, gratitude begins to flow more naturally, not as a forced practice, but as an authentic response to being alive, to having consciousness, to witnessing the miracle of existence itself. And this genuine gratitude elevates your emotional state in a way that effortlessly aligns you with abundance, opportunity, and meaningful relationships. As your emotional baseline shifts from resistance to acceptance, positive thinking stops feeling artificial and starts feeling empowering, because you are no longer using it to cover pain, but to direct creative energy, choosing interpretations that expand possibility rather than reinforce limitation. And through this subtle mastery of inner dialogue, you begin attracting experiences that reflect confidence and openness. Wealth, success, and love then arise not as desperate pursuits, but as natural extensions of your aligned state. Because when negative feelings lose their authority over your identity, you step into interactions with authenticity, pursue goals with inspired action rather than anxious urgency, and magnetize connections rooted in mutual respect and emotional clarity. The end of negative feelings unfolds even more profoundly when you realize that beneath every uncomfortable emotion lies a belief about who you think you are. And when you question that belief with curiosity instead of judgment, you uncover a deeper truth, that your essence has never been damaged by failure, rejection, or loss. And this discovery begins to rewrite the emotional script of your life. Within this new understanding, visualization becomes an act of emotional embodiment rather than escapism, where you imagine your future not to avoid the present, but to awaken the feelings of confidence, joy, and purpose right now, training your nervous system to recognize success and love as familiar rather than foreign. Affirmations, spoken from this grounded awareness, carry a different resonance, because instead of trying to convince yourself of something you doubt, you speak from the quiet knowing that your true self is already complete, and each affirmation becomes a reminder rather than a request, strengthening neural pathways that support empowerment instead of insecurity. In relationships, the absence of chronic negative emotion transforms the way you connect, because when you are no longer seeking someone to fill an inner void, you approach love from fullness, expressing needs clearly, listening deeply, and allowing intimacy to grow without the distortions of fear-based projection. Attracting wealth shifts as well, for money responds to your emotional relationship with it. And when you release shame, scarcity, and comparison, replacing them with appreciation for what you have and excitement for what you are building, financial opportunities begin to feel less like random luck and more like synchronized responses to your internal alignment. The power of now becomes your anchor through every external fluctuation, reminding you that peace is not postponed until goals are achieved, but available in this very instant. And by returning again and again to present awareness, you prevent old patterns of negativity from regaining momentum. Gradually, the discovery of your true self reveals itself not in dramatic enlightenment, but in a steady sense of inner stability, a recognition that you are the awareness witnessing thoughts, the stillness beneath emotions, the presence that remains constant through every season of change. And from this realization flows a quiet confidence that no circumstance can steal. As this confidence deepens, life begins to feel less like a battlefield and more like a creative playground, where manifestation becomes an expression of joy, where gratitude becomes your natural state, where success is pursued with passion rather than pressure, and where love is shared without fear of loss. In this serene yet powerful state, negative feelings may still arise as passing clouds, but they no longer define your sky, and you stand rooted in awareness, breathing steadily, recognizing that the freedom you once searched for in achievements and relationships was always the simple recognition of who you truly are, here and now, whole and luminous. There comes a quiet moment, often after yet another disappointment, another overthinking spiral at 2 in the morning, another comparison that leaves you feeling behind in a world that seems to be moving too fast. When you begin to ask yourself whether suffering is truly unavoidable or whether something deeper has been misunderstood, and in that sincere questioning the doorway to freedom begins to open. Because suffering is not simply pain but resistance to what is, and the mind has mastered the art of resistance. Pain is part of being human. A breakup hurts, failure stings, rejection bruises the ego, uncertainty shakes your sense of control, yet suffering is the story layered on top of that pain. The mental replay that says this should not have happened. This means I am not enough. This proves I will never succeed. And it is that narrative that binds you, not the event itself. Because the law of attraction faithfully amplifies the emotional tone of the story you keep telling yourself. When you believe the story of lack, you begin to notice more lack. When you identify with unworthiness, you unconsciously attract relationships that mirror that insecurity. When you fear failure, you hesitate in action and interpret every obstacle as confirmation. And so suffering becomes self-perpetuating, not because life is against you, but because awareness has been overshadowed by identification with thought. This is where the greatest shift occurs, not in changing circumstances first, but in discovering that you are not the voice narrating every fear-filled prediction, not the mental commentary that measures your worth against social media timelines or external milestones, but the silent awareness in which those thoughts appear. And the moment you glimpse this separation, even briefly, the grip of suffering loosens. From this space of awareness, manifestation takes on a different texture, because instead of desperately visualizing success to escape pain, you begin to visualize from wholeness, imagining your dreams while feeling grounded in the present, understanding that wealth and recognition are enhancements to your experience, not prerequisites for your value. Gratitude then becomes more than a practice. It becomes a perspective that gently dissolves resistance. Because when you are thankful not only for what feels good, but even for the lessons hidden within discomfort, you stop arguing with reality and start flowing with it. And in that flow, the universe responds with synchronicities that feel almost magical, yet are simply reflections of your internal alignment. Affirmations, spoken from this calmer foundation, no longer attempt to overwrite fear, but instead arise as reminders of truth, declarations that you are capable, deserving, creative, resilient. And as these words are felt rather than forced, your emotional frequency shifts, and positive thinking evolves from denial into empowered choice. Even non-duality, which once may have seemed abstract or philosophical, becomes deeply practical, because you recognize there is no separate self being attacked by life, only experiences unfolding within consciousness. And this realization softens judgment, dissolves blame, and invites compassion for yourself and others. As resistance fades, suffering begins to transform into sensation, into waves that rise and fall without defining you. And in this gentle witnessing, you discover that the power of now is not a cliché but a sanctuary, a place where past regrets and future anxieties cannot dominate. where you breathe and simply exist, complete in this single unfolding moment. No more suffering does not mean a life without challenges. It means a life without the compulsive mental warfare against those challenges. And this understanding grows stronger each time you choose presence over panic, curiosity over condemnation, awareness over automatic reaction. Within that choice, attracting wealth becomes an expression of creativity rather than desperation. Because when you are not trying to prove your worth through money, you engage in work that genuinely excites you. You take inspired risks without being paralyzed by fear, and abundance begins to flow not as validation, but as resonance with your aligned state. In relationships, the absence of chronic suffering transforms the way you love, because you no longer cling out of loneliness or push away out of insecurity. Instead, you connect from fullness, expressing gratitude for the other person without making them responsible for your happiness. And in doing so, you attract bonds built on mutual growth rather than mutual neediness. Visualization becomes a sacred rehearsal of possibility, where you imagine your future self not to escape your present, but to embody the feelings of confidence, peace, and joy now, training your mind and nervous system to normalize success and harmony rather than chaos and doubt. Fear may still whisper occasionally, yet you recognize it as a passing cloud rather than a permanent sky, and by observing it without merging with it, you prevent it from dictating your actions, allowing courage to arise naturally from clarity rather than force. This clarity reveals your true self as something untouched by external fluctuations, an awareness that remains steady whether you are praised or criticized, whether you gain or lose, and in resting is that awareness, you realize that suffering was never an inherent feature of existence, but a byproduct of misidentification. From here, life feels lighter, not because everything is perfect, but because you are no longer at war with imperfection, and that inner peace becomes the most powerful magnet of all, drawing opportunities, friendships, love, and prosperity toward you with effortless grace. As you breathe into this realization, sensing the quiet strength within your chest, you understand that freedom was never about controlling every outcome, but about recognizing the unshakable presence you already are. And in that recognition, the search softens, the struggle fades, and you simply remain here, aware, alive, and deeply at peace. There is a subtle tension that lives beneath many of your dreams, a quiet hesitation that whispers maybe this isn't for you. Maybe success belongs to someone more talented, more confident, more connected, and although you try to silence it with ambition and motivation, it lingers in the background, shaping your decisions, guiding your expectations, and quietly influencing what you believe is possible. And this invisible force is nothing more than a limiting belief that has been rehearsed so many times it feels like truth. Limiting beliefs rarely announce themselves boldly. They disguise themselves as logic, as practicality, as realism, telling you that wealth is hard to come by, that lasting love is rare, that happiness fades, that you must struggle endlessly to prove your worth. And because these ideas were absorbed from childhood conversations, social conditioning, and past disappointments, you accept them as facts rather than recognizing them as inherited thoughts passing through awareness. The law of attraction does not respond to what you wish were true. It responds to what you believe at the deepest emotional level. And if you affirm abundance while secretly believing you are destined to struggle, your emotional frequency will echo the belief, attracting circumstances that confirm it, not to punish you, but to reflect the vibration you are unconsciously holding. This is why dissolving limiting beliefs begins not with force, but with curiosity, because the moment you pause and ask, is this belief absolutely true? You create space between you and the thought, And in that space, awareness shines, revealing that beliefs are not permanent structures, but temporary patterns in the mind. As that awareness strengthens, visualization becomes a powerful tool for gently reconditioning the subconscious, not through denial of your current reality, but by emotionally immersing yourself in a new possibility, seeing yourself thriving in your career, feeling respected and valued in relationships, experiencing financial freedom with calm confidence, and allowing your body to register those feelings as familiar rather than foreign. Gratitude plays a vital role in this transformation, because when you consciously appreciate what is already working in your life, you weaken the belief that you are perpetually lacking, and in that shift from scarcity to sufficiency, your nervous system relaxes, your creativity expands, and opportunities become more visible. Affirmations, when spoken from this grounded state, act as gentle reminders rather than desperate attempts to rewrite reality, reinforcing empowering beliefs such as I am capable, I am worthy of love, I attract opportunities aligned with my purpose. And as these statements are felt with sincerity, the old limiting narratives begin to lose their emotional charge. Yet, even deeper than belief replacement lies the realization of non-duality, the understanding that you are not the collection of beliefs at all, but the awareness in which they appear. And when you rest as that awareness, you see that no belief, however persistent, can define your essence, because your true self remains untouched, spacious, and inherently complete. In this recognition, fear begins to soften, because many limiting beliefs are rooted in imagined futures, catastrophic scenarios projected by a restless mind. And when you anchor yourself in the power of now, in the simplicity of this breath and this heartbeat, those imagined fears dissolve, revealing clarity and presence. Dissolving limiting beliefs continues as a lived practice, unfolding each time you choose a new interpretation of a situation, each time you respond to rejection with resilience rather than self-doubt, each time you see an obstacle as a redirection instead of a verdict on your abilities. And through these subtle shifts, your internal narrative transforms. From this evolving narrative, attracting wealth becomes less about chasing money and more about aligning with value, recognizing your skills, nurturing your passions, investing in growth, and trusting that when you operate from confidence rather than insecurity, abundance flows as a natural extension of your energy. Success, once defined by comparison, now feels personal and authentic, shaped by your unique vision rather than societal pressure. And as you pursue goals with enthusiasm instead of fear, manifestation feels lighter, more playful, as if life itself is collaborating with you rather than testing you. In relationships, dissolving beliefs such as I am not lovable or everyone leaves changes everything, because you begin to show up openly, expressing your needs without shame, setting boundaries without guilt, and attracting connections that mirror your self-respect rather than your hidden insecurities. Positive thinking evolves into empowered thinking, grounded in awareness rather than denial, acknowledging challenges while consciously choosing interpretations that strengthen rather than weaken you. And in doing so, you eliminate much of the unnecessary suffering that once stemmed from unquestioned assumptions. As presence deepens, you notice that beliefs arise and fade like clouds in the sky of consciousness. And instead of clinging to empowering ones or fighting disempowering ones, you rest as the sky itself, stable and expansive, allowing thoughts to come and go without attaching your identity to them. This discovery of your true self, beyond belief, beyond fear, beyond conditioned narratives, brings a quiet liberation that no external achievement can provide. And from this inner freedom, your actions become inspired rather than reactive, your words more intentional, your dreams more aligned with authenticity. In this serene unfolding, gratitude becomes effortless, visualization becomes joyful, affirmations become natural expressions of truth, and manifestation becomes the graceful dance between your focused intention and the infinite intelligence of life responding. As you stand within this awareness, feeling the steady rhythm of your breath and the subtle glow of possibility within your chest, you realize that the greatest transformation was never about changing the world outside, but about dissolving the beliefs that obscured your own light. And in that gentle clarity, you remain present, empowered, and quietly certain that everything you seek is already unfolding from within. There is a quiet longing that follows you through achievements and disappointments alike, a subtle whisper that asks whether happiness can ever truly last, because you have tasted excitement when goals were reached and felt the glow of new love when it first arrived. Yet somewhere beneath those highs was the fear that it might fade, and in that fear the search for everlasting happiness begins. You were taught, perhaps without anyone meaning to teach you, that happiness lives in the next milestone, the next relationship, the next amount of money, the next version of yourself. And so you learn to visualize the future with urgency, to manifest success with determination, to affirm abundance with intensity, believing that once the outer world rearranged itself perfectly, the inner restlessness would finally dissolve. Yet even as you practiced the law of attraction and cultivated positive thinking, there were moments when anxiety slipped through, moments when comparison returned, moments when gratitude felt forced. And in those moments you began to sense that happiness tied to conditions is fragile, dependent, easily shaken by circumstances beyond your control. This realization does not mean your dreams are meaningless. It simply reveals that everlasting happiness cannot be the result of manifestation alone, because anything that comes and goes cannot provide permanent peace. And so the journey turns inward, toward the source from which all experiences arise. As you begin to observe your thoughts instead of immediately believing them, you notice how often they project into the future, promising fulfillment once something changes, or replay the past, reminding you of mistakes and missed opportunities. And in this observation, a new awareness emerges, one that recognizes you are not the constant stream of mental commentary, but the silent presence witnessing it. From this presence, the power of now becomes more than a concept. It becomes a living refuge, a place where happiness is not postponed but discovered in the simplicity of breathing, in the sensation of sunlight on your skin, in the rhythm of your heartbeat. And you realize that joy is not created by circumstances but revealed when resistance to the present moment softens. Gratitude deepens here, no longer dependent on specific outcomes, but rooted in existence itself, in the miracle of consciousness, in the privilege of experiencing life in all its colors. And this kind of gratitude generates a frequency that naturally attracts opportunities, relationships, and success, not because you are chasing them, but because you are aligned with abundance at the level of being. Visualization then becomes a joyful extension of this inner contentment rather than a desperate attempt to escape dissatisfaction, allowing you to imagine wealth, creative success, and fulfilling love while already feeling whole. And from this wholeness, your manifestations carry a different energy, one of confidence rather than craving. Non-duality gently reveals that there is no separate self struggling to secure happiness from an external world, but one seamless field of awareness expressing itself through experiences. And in this recognition, the boundary between seeker and sought dissolves, leaving a quiet, luminous sense of completeness. Everlasting happiness unfolds more clearly when you see that suffering was never caused by life itself, but by identification with transient thoughts and emotions. And as that identification loosens, even intense feelings lose their power to define you, rising and falling within the steady space of awareness that you are. Within this steady awareness, attracting wealth becomes a creative adventure rather than a survival strategy. Because when your sense of worth is no longer tied to bank balances, you engage and work with enthusiasm and authenticity, and opportunities seem to synchronize with your intentions in ways that feel both natural and extraordinary. Relationships transform in the same way, because when you are not seeking someone to complete you, you approach love from fullness, offering appreciation instead of expectation, communicating openly instead of defensively, and drawing connections that reflect your inner stability rather than your unresolved fears. Affirmations spoken from this grounded happiness resonate deeply, not as attempts to convince yourself of something missing, but as celebrations of what is already true, reinforcing your identity as capable, lovable, creative, and resilient, and strengthening neural pathways that support expansion rather than limitation. Positive thinking becomes less about suppressing negativity and more about consciously choosing perspectives that align with peace, recognizing challenges without dramatizing them, responding thoughtfully rather than reacting impulsively, and in doing so you eliminate unnecessary suffering before it takes root. As presence deepens, the discovery of your true self becomes unmistakable, felt as a quiet, unshakable awareness beneath every role you play and every goal you pursue, an awareness untouched by praise or criticism, success or failure, and resting in that awareness brings a happiness that does not fluctuate with external events. This happiness does not make you passive. Instead, it energizes inspired action, encouraging you to pursue dreams boldly, to create, to love, to explore, while remaining anchored in inner peace. And from this balanced manifestation becomes a harmonious dance between intention and surrender. Life continues to unfold with its contrasts, yet your relationship to it changes profoundly. Because you are no longer clinging to pleasure or resisting discomfort, you are allowing experiences to flow through you, trusting that your essence remains steady and luminous regardless of circumstances. In this gentle yet powerful realization, you feel a warmth spreading through your being, a recognition that everlasting happiness was never hidden in distant achievements or perfect conditions, but quietly present within awareness itself. And as you breathe into that presence, calm and complete, you sense that nothing is missing, nothing needs to be added, and this moment, just as it is enough. There is a moment, after you have wrestled with your fears and gently questioned your limiting beliefs, when a new perspective begins to dawn, soft and almost unbelievable, whispering that perhaps the world is not against you, that perhaps beneath the noise of headlines, heartbreaks, and personal setbacks, there is an unseen harmony unfolding, and this subtle shift in perception becomes the gateway to understanding that all is well, even when appearances suggest otherwise. You have grown up in a culture that constantly scans for problems, that trains your mind to anticipate disaster, compare achievements, measure worth through numbers and validation. And because of this conditioning, the world can seem chaotic, competitive, even hostile. Yet when you begin practicing awareness, observing your thoughts rather than drowning in them, you realize that much of what feels threatening is interpretation layered upon neutral events. This realization does not deny that challenges exist. It simply invites you to see that your inner state determines how you experience those challenges. And through the law of attraction, your dominant emotional frequency interacts with circumstances, shaping the opportunities you notice, the people you attract, the risks you dare to take. And when you shift from fear to trust, the outer world begins reflecting that trust back to you. Trust grows stronger each time you anchor yourself in the power of now, because in this present moment you are not trapped in past regret or future anxiety. You are simply here, breathing, aware, alive. And from this grounded presence you begin to sense that life is not a random sequence of events, but a dynamic field responding to your consciousness. Visualization becomes an exploration of possibility rather than an escape from reality, allowing you to imagine a thriving career, financial freedom, and fulfilling relationships while feeling calm and centered, as if those dreams are natural extensions of a benevolent universe rather than prizes to be fought for in a hostile arena. Gratitude deepens in this space, expanding beyond personal blessings to include appreciation for the intricate design of existence itself, for the way challenges strengthen resilience, for the way endings make room for beginnings. And as gratitude saturates your awareness, you emit a frequency of openness that draws supportive experiences into your life. Affirmations spoken from this trust carry a different resonance, no longer attempts to override fear, but affirmations of alignment, reminders that you are supported, guided, capable, worthy. And as these words settle into your subconscious, old narratives of struggle begin dissolving, replaced by a quiet conviction that you are part of something intelligent and harmonious. Non-duality gently reveals that the separation you once felt between yourself and the world was an illusion born of thought. And as you rest in awareness, you sense that the same consciousness looking through your eyes animates every other being, dissolving competition into connection, dissolving hostility into understanding. And from this recognition, compassion arises naturally. Through this lens, even setbacks are reframed as redirections, even delays as preparation, even endings as transformation. And while your human emotions may still fluctuate, beneath them flows a steady undercurrent of knowing that life is unfolding with a deeper wisdom than the mind can always comprehend. The understanding that all is well begins to permeate daily life in subtle yet profound ways, influencing how you interpret a missed opportunity, a difficult conversation, or an unexpected change of plans. And instead of reacting with panic or resentment, you pause, breathe, and remember that the present moment remains intact, untouched by mental projections. From this grounded awareness, attracting wealth feels less like a desperate race and more like a creative collaboration with life. Because when you trust that the world is not withholding from you, you engage in your ambitions with enthusiasm and clarity, making decisions from inspiration rather than insecurity, and opportunities seem to align with surprising ease. Relationships transform under this perspective as well, because when you believe that all is well at the foundation of existence, you no longer approach love from fear of abandonment or betrayal. Instead, you communicate honestly, listen deeply, and allow connections to evolve organically, trusting that whatever unfolds serves your growth. Positive thinking shifts from forced optimism into empowered perception, acknowledging challenges without dramatizing them, choosing interpretations that expand rather than constrict. And through this disciplined, yet gentle mindset, you eliminate much of the suffering that once arose from catastrophic assumptions. The discovery of your true self becomes more intimate here, felt as a steady awareness, observing the world's movement without being overwhelmed by it. And resting in that awareness brings a sense of inner stability that external events cannot easily disturb. Manifestation then becomes a joyful dance between intention and surrender, where you clarify your desires through visualization, energize them with gratitude and affirmation, and release them into a universe you trust, knowing that outcomes will align in ways that serve your highest evolution. Even when emotions surge, even when circumstances challenge your patience, the underlying recognition remains that life is not fundamentally broken, that beneath the surface turbulence flows a current of intelligence and order, and remembering this prevents temporary discomfort from hardening into chronic suffering. Gradually, this perspective matures into quiet confidence, not arrogance, but calm assurance, a knowing that you are supported by the very fabric of existence, that your dreams are not random fantasies, but expressions of consciousness seeking expansion, and that every experience contributes to your awakening. As you stand within this awareness, feeling the steady rhythm of your breath and the subtle pulse of possibility in your chest, you sense that the world is not something to conquer or fear, but something to participate in with curiosity and love. And in that gentle participation, trusting and present, you realize that beneath every appearance, beneath every fluctuation, all is indeed well. There is a strange beauty in reaching what feels like the end of a journey, only to realize that nothing has actually ended, that the fears you dissolve, the beliefs you questioned, the awareness you awakened were never destinations but doorways. And in standing at this threshold, you begin to sense that what you once called an ending is simply a deeper beginning disguised as completion. You started with desires, visions of wealth, success, love, recognition, and along the way you discovered the law of attraction, learning that your thoughts and feelings shape your experience. That visualization is not fantasy, but rehearsal. That gratitude shifts your frequency. That affirmations impress new possibilities upon the subconscious mind. And for a time it felt as if mastering these principles would eventually bring you to a final state of permanent fulfillment. Yet fulfillment, as you now feel it, is not an achievement locked in the future. It is the quiet presence available in this breath, the steady awareness beneath every emotion, the silent witness untouched by the rise and fall of circumstances. And in recognizing yourself as that awareness, you begin to understand why there is no true end to this journey. Manifestation continues, of course, because life continues expressing itself through you. But it no longer feels like a race toward completion. Instead, it becomes a creative unfolding, a dance between intention and surrender, where you clarify your desires with enthusiasm and release them with trust, knowing that your wholeness does not depend on the outcome. This recognition dissolves the urgency that once fueled your striving, replacing it with inspired action rooted in joy rather than fear. And when you act from joy, the results carry a different texture, attracting opportunities and relationships that resonate with authenticity instead of insecurity. Non-duality reveals its quiet truth here, showing you that there was never a separate self fighting against the world to secure happiness, but one seamless field of consciousness exploring itself through experiences. And as this understanding deepens, the need to control every detail softens into curiosity about how life wishes to unfold next. The power of now becomes your constant companion, not as a technique you practice occasionally, but as a living realization that the present moment is the only place life ever happens. And in resting here, you find that fear cannot dominate, because fear lives in imagined futures and regretted pasts, neither of which exist outside thought. Gratitude flows more effortlessly than ever before, not only for achievements and pleasant experiences, but for the entire spectrum of existence, for growth that came through challenge, for lessons disguised as loss, for the resilience forged in uncertainty. And in this expansive appreciation, you sense a profound harmony underlying it all. The end of suffering reveals itself not as the elimination of discomfort, but as the end of identification with it, the understanding that emotions are waves passing through the ocean of awareness that you are, And when you stop clinging to the waves or resisting them, you discover the ocean was always calm at its depth. The realization that there is no end continues to expand, inviting you to see that growth is infinite, that consciousness is endlessly creative, that each desire fulfilled gives birth to new inspiration, not from lack, but from the natural impulse of life to express itself more fully. Within this infinite unfolding, attracting wealth becomes an ongoing exploration of value and contribution, because when your identity is no longer tied to material accumulation, money transforms into a tool for creativity, generosity, and expansion, flowing in alignment with your purpose rather than serving as proof of worth. Success, too, evolves beyond external metrics, becoming a reflection of alignment between your inner truth and outer actions. And when you pursue goals from this alignment, the journey itself feels meaningful, regardless of how quickly results appear. Relationships deepen under this perspective, because when you recognize that no person can complete you, you approach love as a sharing of fullness rather than a remedy for emptiness, expressing appreciation freely, communicating honestly, and allowing others the freedom to grow alongside you. Positive thinking matures into conscious awareness, where you no longer force optimism, but choose empowering perspectives while honoring authentic emotions. And in this balanced approach, you eliminate the internal conflict that once drained your energy. The discovery of your true self becomes a continuous revelation rather than a single awakening moment, felt in subtle insights during quiet reflection, in spontaneous compassion during conflict, in the serene clarity that arises when you pause and simply observe your thoughts without judgment. Visualization and affirmations remain part of your creative toolkit, yet they are now infused with ease, spoken and imagined from a place of already being whole, already being enough. And this shift changes everything, because manifestations arising from wholeness carry harmony rather than tension. Even when life presents uncertainty, the underlying trust remains intact, a gentle knowing that existence is not fragmented or chaotic at its core, but intelligent and interconnected, guiding you through experiences that refine your awareness and expand your capacity to love. And so what once felt like an ending reveals itself as a spacious horizon stretching infinitely forward, not demanding that you arrive anywhere, not pressuring you to become someone else, but inviting you to remain present, curious, and open, resting as awareness itself, while participating fully in the adventure of being human, sensing in the quiet rhythm of your breath that this unfolding has no final chapter, only the continuous, luminous expression of life discovering itself through you. There is a quiet excitement that rises when understanding turns into application, when wisdom stops being something you admire from a distance and becomes something you live, breathe, and embody. And it is here that the true practices of the greatest secret begin to unfold, not as rigid rituals or complicated routines, but as gentle shifts in awareness that transform the way you experience every moment of your life. You have already sensed that awareness is the foundation of everything, that you are not merely the stream of thoughts moving through your mind, but the still presence observing them. And so the first living practice is beautifully simple. Pause, notice, and recognize that you are the observer, not the narrative. And in this recognition, you interrupt the automatic cycle of fear, comparison, and self-doubt that once dominated your inner world. From this steady witnessing, visualization takes on a new depth, no longer fueled by desperation, but by creative joy, allowing you to imagine your desired career, financial abundance, loving partnership, or vibrant health while remaining rooted in present moment peace. And because you are no longer visualizing to escape who you are, but to express who you are. The images carry emotional authenticity that resonates powerfully with the law of attraction. Gratitude becomes a daily returning, a conscious remembering that even before your manifestations appear, life is already rich with beauty, from the rhythm of your breath to the support of a friend, from the lessons hidden in setbacks to the opportunities quietly forming beyond your current view. And as gratitude saturates your emotional state, it dissolves scarcity at its core. Affirmations are practiced not as mechanical repetition, but as intentional alignment, spoken slowly, felt deeply, integrated into your nervous system with calm conviction, affirming not only external desires but internal truths such as I am awareness, I am worthy, I am aligned with abundance. And through this gentle reinforcement, your subconscious begins to release old patterns of limitation. Another sacred practice emerges in the art of conscious feeling, where instead of suppressing uncomfortable emotions or dramatizing them, you allow them to rise within the spacious field of awareness, observing them without judgment until they naturally soften, and in doing so you eliminate suffering at its root, because you no longer resist what is present. The power of now becomes a continuous anchor, woven into simple moments, walking, studying, working, conversing, where you return again and again to the sensation of being alive, to the immediacy of experience, and each return strengthens your connection to the unshakable presence that is your true self. In this presence, non-duality is no longer philosophical. It becomes experiential, felt as a subtle dissolving of separation between you and the world, where the same awareness looking through your eyes seems to shimmer in every person you meet, every tree you pass, every opportunity you encounter, creating a sense of unity that naturally inspires compassion and trust. Through these living practices, manifestation transforms into an organic process, where intentions are set with clarity, emotions are aligned with sincerity, actions are taken with enthusiasm, and outcomes are surrendered with grace, knowing that your value is not determined by results, but by the awareness from which you act. The practices deepen as they integrate into daily life, subtly reshaping how you respond to challenges, because when uncertainty arises, you pause before reacting, grounding yourself in awareness, reminding yourself that thoughts are temporary, and choosing perspectives that empower rather than diminish you. Within this grounded state, attracting wealth becomes a reflection of inner alignment rather than external hustle alone. As you cultivate confidence in your skills, gratitude for current resources, and trust in unseen possibilities, taking inspired steps that feel expansive rather than forced, and noticing how synchronicities begin to appear with surprising precision. Relationships flourish under these practices, because when you approach others from awareness rather than insecurity, you listen more fully, express yourself more honestly, and create space for authentic connection, free from the weight of unspoken fears or unmet expectations. Positive thinking evolves into conscious direction of energy, where you acknowledge difficulty yet deliberately focus on solutions, opportunities, and growth, understanding that where attention flows, experience follows, and through this disciplined yet gentle focus you participate actively in shaping your reality. Moments of doubt may still surface, yet they are met with compassion rather than condemnation, observed as passing weather within the vast sky of your awareness. And this simple shift prevents temporary emotion from crystallizing into long-term belief. The discovery of your true self becomes an ongoing practice of returning to stillness amid noise, returning to breath amid stress, returning to gratitude amid uncertainty, and each return strengthens your recognition that the peace you seek has always been your foundation. Visualization continues to inspire. Affirmations continue to strengthen. Gratitude continues to elevate. Yet beneath all techniques rests the ultimate practice. Remembering who you are beyond technique, beyond thought, beyond form. Resting as awareness itself while engaging fully in the dance of manifestation. Life unfolds with its contrasts, yet you meet it with steadiness, because these practices have shifted your identity from the anxious seeker to the conscious creator, from the fearful reactor to the present observer, and from this evolved state you participate in the world with confidence, creativity, and love. As you breathe gently now, sensing the quiet hum of awareness within your chest, you recognize that the greatest secret was never hidden in complexity, but revealed through simplicity, practiced moment by moment in presence, gratitude, and conscious intention. And in living these practices, you discover a freedom that feels natural, luminous, and endlessly unfolding within you. There is something beautifully ironic about arriving at what feels like the final moment of this journey and realizing that nothing is ending at all, because every insight you have uncovered about the law of attraction, every experiment with visualization, every whispered affirmation, every surge of gratitude, every quiet recognition of awareness has not been leading you toward a finishing line, but gently guiding you back to yourself. Back to the still presence that has been here before the first desire arose and will remain long after every goal has been fulfilled. You began with dreams, perhaps of wealth that would bring freedom, success that would earn respect, relationships that would heal loneliness. And there is nothing wrong with those dreams, because they are expressions of life wanting to expand through you. Yet along the way you discovered that manifestation is not merely about controlling outcomes, but about aligning your inner world so deeply with clarity, confidence, and gratitude that your outer world naturally reorganizes itself in resonance with your state of being. You learned that visualization is not an escape from reality, but a creative rehearsal that imprints possibility onto your subconscious mind. That affirmations are not magic spells, but conscious declarations that reshape neural pathways. That gratitude is not polite positivity, but a powerful emotional frequency that dissolves scarcity and invites abundance. And through practicing these consciously, you felt shifts, subtle at first, then undeniable. Yet deeper than technique was the revelation that your thoughts are not your identity. That fear and doubt are passing weather in the vast sky of awareness, and that the true transformation begins the moment you stop fighting your mind and start observing it, because in that observation suffering loses its authority, and the power of now becomes more than an idea, it becomes a refuge. From this refuge, non-duality unfolded not as philosophy, but as lived experience, revealing that the separation you once felt between yourself and the world was born of misidentification, that there is one seamless consciousness expressing itself as dreams, challenges, relationships, opportunities, and even the very awareness listening to these words right now. As this understanding matured, eliminating fear no longer meant becoming invincible. It meant recognizing that fear is a projection into imagined futures. And when you anchor yourself in the present moment, breathing steadily, aware of sensations and sounds in space, you step out of those imagined scenarios and return to the only place where life actually unfolds. From here, attracting wealth becomes an extension of self-worth rather than a substitute for it. Success becomes an expression of passion rather than a measure of identity, and relationships become partnerships between whole individuals rather than attempts to fill internal voids. And in living from this fullness, you magnetize experiences that mirror your inner stability. You discovered that dissolving limiting beliefs requires courage and curiosity, that the end of negative feelings begins with allowing them to be seen without judgment, that everlasting happiness is not found in perfect conditions but in stable awareness, and that when you truly see the world through the lens of trust rather than fear, a quiet certainty arises that beneath all appearances, all is well. And now, standing in this expanded perspective, you recognize that the greatest secret was never hidden in complexity, never locked behind external achievement, never reserved for a select few, but resting quietly in your own consciousness, waiting to be acknowledged, lived, and embodied. The journey continues, not as restless searching, but as conscious participation, where you visualize boldly yet remain present, where you affirm confidently yet stay humble, where you pursue dreams passionately yet remember that your essence is already complete, and in this balanced manifestation becomes joyful rather than urgent. So as you move forward from here, carry this awareness gently into your studies, your ambitions, your friendships, your love life, your setbacks and victories alike, remembering that you are not merely reacting to life, but co-creating it through your focus, your feelings, and your presence. And when challenges arise, return to the breath, return to gratitude, return to the knowing that awareness itself is untouched. If this journey resonated with you, if it sparked clarity, comfort, or inspiration, take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to CliffNote Chronicles for upcoming audiobook summaries that continue exploring powerful ideas in ways that are immersive, empowering, and deeply transformative, because your growth deserves consistent nourishment. And as the words fade and silence gently returns, notice that awareness remains steady and luminous, holding every dream, every possibility, every unfolding chapter of your life within it, whispering softly that you are already whole, already capable, already home.